Yes, Destination Yuri, it is the morning programme. We're cantering along through the course of the day. Delighted to welcome into studio Richard Black from Bestbrook, a local man. I should have introduced the lady first. I'm terribly sorry. I take castigation, Richard, for that. I'm sorry. Dr. Lycia Trouton, the artist of Toronto in Canada and the world. The woman who's responsible, the author of the work that is the Linen Memorial, and you're bringing it to Bestbrook. And Richard, you're the part of the host community in Bestbrook taking the Linen Memorial. It's going to be in the Church of Ireland Hall in Bestbrook on the day of the carol service. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, we heard about the Linen Memorial from some people around Bestbrook, and we decided, because Bestbrook has obviously had a very checkered history, so we decided it would be very good at the time of reflection around Christmas, where a bit of Thanksgiving, and also as well for people to remember people who have been lost in the Troubles.
Okay, and we've had I call them our terribleness, because troubles seem too easy. We have been to hell and back, Richard.
We have, certainly, yes. And Bestbrook and parts of South Armagh have been notorious over the last number of years, really, about some of the tragedies that happened. Obviously, there was the King's Mill ambush in 1976, where 10 local workmen...
I remember the night it happened. I was called onto duty in the BBC to deal with it. I'll never forget it. And we lost... There's many stories in there of humanity as well, amongst those who were to perish.
Yes, indeed.
Supporting one another in that time. So the thing, Dr. Trouton, about the memorial is you're leading people... I've seen it in the other places. People have come to it and have been quite emotional. They've seen the names, and suddenly, the penny drops and they see someone they loved who has gone, or someone they knew who has gone.
Well, it does have that unusual effect. There's something to do with the textiles. And in Bestbrook, it's interesting historically because it was a linen mill at one point and a Quaker town. Quakers were supposedly neutral. But yes, the fabric draped in the light, and then the fact that the name is stitched, it's kind of the name that pops out. And then I have this random, I say we because Dr. Stephen Perrott, a Welsh Australian, helped me do the psychoacoustics, or he was the...
Tell them what psychoacoustics are.
Behind the psychoacoustics, thanks Steve. He's always on the web on his computer, so he'll be watching.
Tell them what psychoacoustics are.
Well, the names, unlike on the linen, which are chronologically displayed according to this book on your coffee table, Lost Lives, the names list, one of the official names lists from 66 to 2006. But let me get to your question, are chronological. So they're stitched chronologically, but in order to get the names during a period where people don't have to stay with the memorial for 3 hours, which would be if you and I read the names together, which we have in Corrymeela in 2008 on the Day of Reflection. After that, in 2009, Steve and I was working in Australia at the time, where Aaron has told me he's from, your technical guru this morning. And what we did, Steve has a PhD in psychoacoustics, so the names actually sort of pop out in a randomized order from speakers. Now,
it's almost like a symphony of echoes, with each echo representing a name.
And I will say at the Dominican, I did it in that fashion, which was more an art installation fashion. But I was told by survivors, really, that 2 voices were enough. I've got 6 readers, Irish and Australian, Canadian, Irish, or Ulster Scots immigrants, but we do it 2 at a time now. It's much easier. I don't want to re-traumatize anyone. I mean, these books this morning that Richard has brought with me, Bestbrook, the Model Village, and...
We can see some of those on screen, some of the images of Bestbrook on screen, yes?
That's my understanding that Andrew put these up for
Wow,
us.
yes. And that's your family that we're looking at, Richard, there.
My grandfather and all the members of his family. I think there was 12 in that family, which was very unusual for a Protestant family.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think 2 died very, very early. But that's the tall man at the back is my grandfather.
Your grandfather?
Yes.
What year would that have been?
That was probably just around the middle of the last century, maybe 1870s, 1880s.
And Richard, what did your family in that period work at? What were they?
They worked in the mill.
They were mill.
They were all worked in the mill. My grandfather, Jones Black, came originally from Guildford, or
Yes.
Blairey direction, because there was a lot of work in Bestbrook in the 1850s, 1860s, and a lot of the workers came because they had that expertise in linen making and doing that sort of work. So they all came, gravitated towards Bestbrook.
Did
From
you?
where?
From parts of County Down,
Okay.
and obviously people came.
Did
from,
you, the voice who speaks at me now, did you ever walk through the working mill of Bestbrook?
It was just probably I was maybe it was coming to near the end when I was a young fella to some extent. But I remember with my father and my uncle actually going and taking a lot of stuff out of the mill. And the cards and all the things, and we actually then recycled that summer. So
Yeah.
we spent one probably month of November and December taking a lot of the old stuff out of the mill
Yeah.
when the mill was
So
no longer used.
the mill was Bestbrook and Bestbrook was the mill.
Yes, totally. The
Totally
whole
there.
life revolved around the factory of the mill, and you could hear the horns in the morning getting people up.
And you remember those horns?
I remember them, yes, indeed. There was
Yeah.
2 big chimneys, and you could hear the horn, and it went. And they were very strict, obviously, the Quakers as well. That
Yeah.
if you didn't arrive in time,
You could very often not get a word
you
word out of them. They're very quiet people.
very quiet people, very resilient, but tough, quite
Yeah.
good disciplinarians.
Stolid, I would use the word.
I think yes.
Strong.
If you didn't roll and turn up for work, the gates were closed.
They were closed.
What year was that Christmas when you took the items out of the mill?
That would probably have been round about the late 60s, early 70s.
But you still have a Quaker population in Bestbrook. There is a meeting house there. I attended a service one Sunday a few years back.
Yes, they still meet. There's very few families now to some extent,
Yeah.
but they would still meet on a regular basis in the Friends Meeting House, and it's a lovely place, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of calmness about it. There's the forested trees around it from Derrymore, and it's
Yeah.
a lovely place to
I think,
stay.
Richard and Lycia, what I discovered in working closely with the Linen Memorial at the churches that we visited with the memorial were lovely places, and each one lovely in a different way.
Well, the architecture of churches is
Yeah.
so important, and it makes for a peaceful, meditative space
Absolutely,
or a space of
absolutely.
ritual.
But when you put the Linen Memorial in there, when you erect the Linen Memorial, it takes on a different character in each place because of the difference in the architecture of the location.
It's like a traveling tent, it's a mobile monument, and that's how I conceived it. Originally, I was thinking of the bleaching greens, which would have been, mid-1800s?
Yes.
Where the process was to lay the linens out to be bleached for days on end, And because I was an earth artist, like a landscape architect,
Yeah.
but not quite, a sculptor who worked out in the land. And at that time, it was 99, 2000, so I thought, well, this is still controversial. And it was an anti-violence project, really, at that point. So I thought, well, if anything happens, I could roll it up, But in the churches, yes, my father, and it's his birthday today, so
Happy birthday.
to my dad, who's 80, and in a longevity study now in Canada. But he was an architect, and I was always looking at space, sculpture as space. So as well as the crafting and the stitching that 50 ladies and 1 man around the world have done on the project, it's a crafted space. So you walk into it with different feelings. I mean, tell me how it was for you at Corrymeela, because that was a round space.
Yeah,
so.
I've met the project, met Lycia at Corrymeela about 8 years ago. It was the World Day of Reflection, and I was there to do a television program on it, Richard. And I walked in to the Cree in Corrymeela, which is a meditative church-like space, a vault underneath the earth with a clear roof with the sunlight coming streaming through. And I hadn't seen Lycia before. I hadn't seen the memorial before. And I'm walking in, and it's almost like, the artistic depiction of the empty tomb, of the brightness is there, but the death is gone. And I knew what this was about. And for me at that moment, there was the kind of lovely sparkling wonderment of the brightness of the sun and the white linen, and no death, although it was a document of death. That had all gone. So that was hugely important for me, and that's the kind of thing that's coming to you. Why did Bessbrook, do you think, want it, Richard?
Well, I think so. I think, well, we were a garrison village for so long, obviously with the army. That was the main base for the army in the 70s and 80s and early 90s in South Armagh. And Bessbrook grown up sort of as the model village, basically the relationships in the village were extremely good and still remains extremely good. So I think when we were touched really very badly by the Troubles, by the Kingsmill Massacre in 1976, the village pulled together very closely. And ever since that, we have been trying to stimulate the village, the same Quaker ideals, basically to have people with a bit of tolerance and sensitivity for their neighbours. And we're trying to keep the village ethos alive. So when we got the opportunity of sort of saying, what can we do? We have this interdenominational carol service every year.
And this year it's at the Catholics.
It's
with the Catholic Church.
Catholic Church this year. It goes round 4 churches, and the Friends Meeting House, the Church of Ireland, and the Methodists. And then we have this interdenominational carol service. And I thought there'd be a great opportunity for people to we will see quite a number of people. There'll be relatives there, people that died in the Troubles. And it'd be very useful for people just to sit and reflect. It'd be a sad occasion for some people, but hopefully it will be obviously not too disturbing for them.
Yeah, no, it shan't be, and it'll be a healing experience. Hold those thoughts for a moment, if you would, please. Yep. We take a break. Back with you very shortly.
Destination Newry. We're back in moments.
Slimming World, if you want to lose weight, don't wait until 2015. We have members losing weight in our groups every week. Come along to a warm and friendly group today where there is no hunger, no judgment, just loads of support and motivation to get you to target. Love food, love Slimming World. Contact us on Facebook, Slimming World Newry, Down and Armagh.
Kelly's, at your service. Ah, service. Now, that's the word at the very heart of it all. It's the Kelly's philosophy. Think beyond building and hardware. Think beyond the hire shop, the kaleidoscope of the paint shop. Kelly's there too for the solid fuel to feed into the stoves that burn so warm and bright at Christmas time, and on through winter's worst. There's the other word, Christmas, and we have a club to cover it. Kelly's, Burren Warren Point. The science of thinking outside the box. Everything covered.
Louis Boyd's, 58 Mill Street, Newry. If you want to dress to impress, Louis Boyd's is for you. Style, comfort and great value. Louis Boyd's. Menswear labels now in stock. Diesel, Tommy Hilfiger, Superdry, Ramus Yomo and G-Star. Also communion and confirmation wear. Open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Saturday 9 to 5:30. Thursday and Friday 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Sunday 1 to 5 p.m. Louis Boyd's, 58 Mill Street or louisboyd.com.
Advertise your business here. Reach a weekly audience of 275,000 people. Be ahead of the rest. Call Damien on 078 08 80 34 75 or 028 308 34 012. JT Carpets Newry has been servicing the floor covering needs of Ireland since the 1970s. We have Ireland's largest stock of carpets on display. You can always be assured of our professional commitment to quality, service and outstanding value. Stocking a wide range of carpets, vinyl, wooden flooring, furniture, rugs and accessories. We are committed to providing the right product for your individual needs. Contact us today on 028 3083 9944. Why not call in store today in Bessbrook Industrial Estate, Mill Road, Newry.
You've reached your destination.
Yes, it's Destination Uri. It is the morning program. Rowan Hand, your host, privileged to so be. Privileged, too, to have the artist Lycia Trouton with us in studio and Bestbrook's Richard Black. Yeah. And we see the imagery of Bestbrook traditionality on the screen. If we can have it there, please, sir. We can see it. And Bestbrook is, I think we're saying, about family, family, and family. And that group of families that is Bestbrook makes up the Bestbrook community.
Certainly it does indeed, and generations would have worked in the mill and would have obviously got accommodation, housing, good housing associated
Provided
with that,
by the Quakers.
by the Quakers and by the Richardson's family.
Yeah.
And then basically people, when they left school, they went into the actual factory. So
Yeah. And this, what we're looking at now, it's more of your ancestry in Bestbrook. It's another picture of
yes,
them.
the wee lady, the wee girl at the very bottom is my grandmother.
My goodness.
Who passed away in the early 70s.
Yeah.
Granny Black, she was a very formidable character. She had a very acidy tongue, and she could have cut the boots off you very quickly. But
if it were necessary.
Yes, very kind lady.
Yeah.
And obviously that was the Downey family, and they were all worked in the mill as well.
There came a moment in the history of Bestbrook of the King's Mills massacre. And this touched you very deeply. When did you first hear on that night? What were the circumstances of you being made aware that something terrible had happened?
I was down in Belfast. I was at university at the time. I was studying, and I was doing a placement. I was a social worker by profession, and I was doing a placement in a children's home in Hollywood. I went over to stay with my sister in Belfast that night. I think my mother and father were with me that time. And the news came through just about 7 o'clock that there had been an ambush of all the
and
guys.
Did you hear that on television or on the radio?
I think I probably heard it by a phone call, probably.
A phone call
From somebody, because we knew that there was members of our family were involved.
Because one of the things I have to say, when I was tasked with duties inside the BBC, one of the things we were always conscious of, that we would not act in a way that would allow a family of a victim to hear the news unsupported and out of the blue on our news bulletins. We watched out for that. So you got that phone call, and the phone call told you what?
Told us that there had been an ambush in outside Bestbrook, about 3 or 4 miles outside Bestbrook. Guys were coming home from work, and that there was people very seriously hurt, and maybe some people were actually dead. And I think my father, when he heard the news from maybe his brother, we all come back to Bestbrook, and then obviously the news drifted through the next day of the number of people that had been killed and injured. And my cousin was the only survivor out of that. There was 2 people survived. Richard Hughes was a Catholic lad, and he was actually told to leave the scene, and the rest of the guys were mown down.
And Alan?
Alan survived.
And what were the circumstances of Alan the Protestant surviving this sectarian attack?
I think maybe it was by pure chance. I think Alan was maybe the last on the minibus, and he would tell me afterwards that he survived mainly by the fact that he fell when he was shot. A lot of the bodies fell on top of him, and so obviously he was able to just survive some of the wounds. The bullets didn't just go straight through and didn't do as much damage as the other guys. So he was lucky enough. There was a wee stream of water that was on, and that sort of kept him refreshed. And he basically then he was very seriously hurt, he was very seriously injured, but he survived.
It's almost like a biblical story. A man down, broken, injured by felons, and by some miraculous occasion, there's a stream of water which refreshes him and guides him back onto the pathway of life.
Well, yes, maybe he was lucky, and people came on the scene fairly quickly, and he was able to be taken to Daisy Hill Hospital and spent a long time in recuperation. And the interesting thing that one of the Ravies who'd been killed had been shot the night before, one of the Ravie brothers was in the hospital with them at the time, and the 2 boys were from one side of the community to the other side of the community, and they were quite close. But unfortunately, young Ravie died a couple of months later.
And the bad men of both sides, claiming to, erroneously and dreadfully claiming to represent the people of both traditions, they brought this havoc and awfulness on the Catholic side and on the Protestant side, and Bessbrook grew through that.
It was in the middle of it, and I suppose to some extent there was a real war going on between the British authorities, probably some of the loyalist community and the Republican community. So there really was a war.
Yeah, but not ever in Bessbrook, because
No.
you guys in Bessbrook, Catholics and Protestants, didn't lose the plot ever. You were always there. There was a togetherness.
Well, there was good things about Bessbrook, Rowan, to some extent, that Bessbrook people were very much into their sport. There was a lot of mixture in the football teams, the soccer teams. We had a rugby team at one stage way back in the 1880s. Very good badminton teams. And sport was such an integral part. And because people were working side by side, grew up in generations, they had a lot of respect for each other.
Lycia Trouton, this is the place that you're bringing your memorial to. Do you get a sense, or what sense do you get listening to Richard talk about these things?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I'm from Belfast. We knew 7 people who were killed. An almost close death with my maternal grandfather and uncle. But I've been lucky enough to have gone around the world studying and working in the arts community. And it's interesting when you talk about sport. I happened to be an Irishman, an Irish Canadian in the University of British Columbia, who is studying how sport and peace, can work together for social justice, exactly for the reasons you're talking about. And I suppose being in the arts, I was drawn to my own heritage and, what could the arts do in a kind of community-based way for something more important than selling art, or more important than personally therapeutic, more trying to contribute.
Yeah.
So, it's very special, humbling. It's an honor, to bring it to Bessbrook, as you say, with the orientation of the space. It's a wonderful new space. It's 2011 it was built, this Church of Ireland Hall, community hall, and the fact that it's a model community. My mother's mother came to Ireland from Scotland to set up a Quaker school, and I wouldn't know all the details the way she does, but my mother spent the war years in Armagh, and there's a very interesting Quaker artist named James Turrell, who I've always looked at, who makes beautiful spaces. And first saw his work in California, and they always say that he has a kind of Quaker feel to his installations, and it's your digital stills here aren't in real time, so Aaron can't put that on for us, but if people look up James Turrell, that's something I've always tried to do with my art, is create a space of reflection, and that the light behind the linen, or the light as you saw it in Corrymeela on the longest day of the year. We've got June 21st. We're coming up to December 21st, which is the shortest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere. But, that's behind the linen. And it's wonderful to bring it to a place where linen was so integral to the community. I had a man walk out of the space at St. Mary's who said to me, it was a great statement, he said, linen was always stronger wet. And I think he was referring to the tears of our community. And I worked with a composer named Thomas Fitzgerald in Australia, from Melbourne, who unfortunately is going through cancer survival right now. But he did an original soundtrack, a composition for the piece at one point. 2002 and 2004 we put that on, and he referred to it as the transformation of tears, or the seeming insanity of forgiveness. Yeah.
That's interesting as a concept, the seeming insanity of forgiveness. Forgiveness is our bread and butter going forward. The Catholics in Bessbrook have nothing to forgive the Protestants for. The Protestants have nothing to forgive the Catholics for. Bessbrook has always been mutually supportive within the community. But in the wider journey we're on, Richard, in Northern Ireland, we have still people trying to pull us back into what Prince Charles referred to the other day as the Dark Ages. He was talking about Syria. He was talking about the Islamist thing there. But This kind of thing, can it, Richard, the memorial, can it take the community, the many Bessbrooks, the places which are still possessed of an angularity, each community to the other? Flags are a thing that have caused us problems in the past. If we regard the memorial as one great flag, is this a flag that can maybe walk us to a better future?
Well, I suppose the Lennon Memorial, it's done in white, and white is obviously a very neutral colour. And when you talk about the light coming in, we've all had our problems with flags right through the province. The Prime Ministers at the moment are trying to negotiate something as we speak this morning. That'll probably take a long time to probably resolve. We've had a few issues with flags, even recently in Bessbrook, where
Poor man lost his life.
Oswald Bradley lost his life as a result of a flag.
Yeah.
In the summer there.
And what happened, just to let the folk know what happened there, someone had put a tricolour Irish Republic flag on the island in the middle of the lake. And the gentleman swam out to try and take it down. And in so doing, he drowned.
Well, there's two sides to that. People would say that Oswald Bradley was actually taking a Union Jack out to put it up beside it, because he said,
which would be Bessbrook.
Yes, because he said we've never had that in Bessbrook before, and that Oswald was trying to do this to put some sort of party and have it there, and unfortunately he lost his life.
Well, it's a strange, awful story that has brought us. How can I smile? I smile because of the concept that he wanted to have the Union flag beside the Irish tricolour flag, and that the two, like Bessbrook, would go forward together. A very special place, Bessbrook. I think we have some shots of the mill there. And Protestants and Catholics would have worked in the mill together, Richard.
Very, very much so. There was quite a few people come out from Newry on the Bessbrook tramway so a lot of people come out too, and they were called the Newry Nucks.
Oh, yeah.
And the Bessbrook people were called the Jam and Breads, because their lunch was jam and bread. We didn't have any roast beef or cheese or anything.
And Newry people were eating nuts.
No, Newry Nucks.
Nucks. Yeah, not
Nucks. What is a nuck?
It's a kind of a...
K-N-U-C-K, I think it's called.
It's a kind of a...
Just a colloquial name for Newry people.
Kind of,
but the people come out on the tram out to Bessbrook, and the tram unfortunately closed in 1948.
Absolutely.
We're trying to develop a walkway.
Oh, that would be great.
We were trying to establish it right away where the tram line came. So we have got a walkway right under the Egyptian arch.
Yes.
Right under the 18 arches.
18 arches, yeah.
And we're trying to then get it established right up into the village itself, so through the Bessbrook woods and up towards the tram station.
I think anything that opens up Bessbrook and the philosophy of Bessbrook, if you like, the character of Bessbrook, to a wider world has got to be good, because you guys can teach us a lesson.
Well, the only thing about Bessbrook is a wee bit off the beaten track, because you don't go anywhere to get to Bessbrook. It's, you don't go through a major town, so you're actually coming into Bessbrook, and it's just a wee village on its own.
Yeah.
So Bessbrook roads lead to nowhere.
Yeah.
So I think and obviously the houses are still maintained. They've got the two squares, Charlie's College Square and Charlemagne Square. We've got the town hall still there. So there's still a lot of history in the village of Bessbrook, which we want to maintain.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a number of shopkeepers and things like this that have to keep
It's very quaint as a place.
It is
it's a
very
homely
Can you bring
community.
the tram back?
Wow.
That would be a project.
It would be absolutely. We're actually in the process of actually trying to restore the tram carriage to take it to Bessbrook. It's going to be sent down to...
And it's gone to the Southern Regional College for restoration.
Yes, there's two tram carriages at the moment have been rescued. One's been refurbished in Newry by the students in Southern Regional College. It was just taken off the site.
The automotive department or something?
No, it's just, I think it's guys who are working in with their hands and things like this.
Rebuilding of the structure, first of all.
And then the Ulster Transport Museum are going to do the other one that's in Bessbrook as well. So that'll be, that we can actually reflect back on our history.
Lycia, back to the memorial and what is it? Can you recall the moment the penny dropped and you said to yourself, I, Lycia Trouton, living in Toronto, Canada, having left Ireland as a baby, I want to do a linen memorial? Where did that come from?
Well, probably it started at the top of the steps at Waterworks in Belfast, where the year before, in 1999, a long time ago now, I was working in what they called an interface community. Kids were talking to me in this youth-oriented community arts earthwork I was building, a temporary earthwork with a small British Columbia Arts Council grant.
Okay.
And, kids were throwing stones and calling each other names, and I was trying to process all this of someone who hadn't been back to Belfast since 1976 as a 10-year-old.
Right.
And went back home, and I think we've discussed this before. I just felt a kind of palpable sense of I know it sounds a little bit woo-woo, but a kind of sense of grief in the country. I know it's very nebulous and kind of intuitive. But you don't have that in, excuse me, I have a cough, in Canada. You just don't walk out into public parks or spaces and have this sort of underlying kind of, well, for example, Bestbrook it's had a massacre. I don't know where that van was at what particular time, but spaces get patinas.
Yeah.
Churches, people are praying in them every day. This space would have jolly old St. Nicholas, because we have the the conceptual fireplace of Rowan Hand right here. So it was odd working in the Waterworks Park, and my
But you went home from Waterworks to Canada.
Yeah, I went home.
Was there some kind of magic that occurred that sort of went across the pond to Northern America?
Yeah, the magic was the internet and an email about this book.
And this book is The Lost Lives.
It's one of the names lists.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought, well, there I have the chronology, scholarly chronology by 4 journalists, 1 database researcher. It couldn't have been done without the internet, without computers.
Yeah.
And researchers, and 5 years of research, et cetera, et cetera. I had my maternal grandfather in my head. I had listening to people like you in the 70s and 80s on the radio and television in my head. I was a sensitive, artistic child processing, my home country has this violence, and we're over here, and then in art school as a young person studying the Vietnam War and the memorial, the structure. I studied structure, I studied art, I studied sculpture, funerary arts in the prehistoric period. I lived in Detroit for 3 years studying sculpture, and that was obviously a city not unlike Belfast for other reasons, with civil rights.
Civil rights, yeah.
And there you go. It's a strange pattern in my head.
So once it happened, once the chemistry had occurred, the genesis of the work, how do you go about getting all of the names? How do you physically? How did you get the embroidery? I'll tell you what. Hold that thought for the last 10 minutes of the program, and we'll be back presently. Taking a break now.
Destination Newry. Keep it on. We're back in moments.
Advertise your business here. Reach a weekly audience of 275,000 people. Be ahead of the rest. Call Damien on 078 08 80 34 75 or 028 308 34 012.
You can find a smile in all directions. A million miles away, right by your side. Take a look around you. It's right here for you and
The Keys Newry, where the journey continues.
McNally's Late Night Pharmacy, Monaghan Street, Newry. Check out our super fantastic Christmas offers, including Tipperary Crystal at £6.95. Fantastic self-tanning liquid plus instant tan bronzer was $19.99, now $11.75. Up to 30% off whey protein in store. Performance 1 kg whey protein plus magnesium was £35, now £25. White to brown tanning, now $12.99. Plus a free body wash worth £3.99 with every purchase. Merry Christmas from McNally's Late Night Pharmacy, Monaghan Street, Newry, where the healthcare needs of the community is our priority.
Jack Murphy Jewellers in the heart of Newry is one of the leading jewellers in Ireland and one of Newry's major shopping attractions. Diamonds personally selected at source help create an exciting collection of engagement rings and designer jewellery, complemented by international men's and women's designer watches. Attention to consumer needs, offering honest advice and great value is a cornerstone of our friendly Newry showroom. Find us at Diamond House, 63 Hill Street, Newry. For quality, value and service, Jack Murphy Jewellers of Newry, the Diamond People.
You've reached your destination.
Destination Newry, the morning programme, and I've got with me Lycia Trouton, the artist of the Linen Memorial, Richard Black, the citizen of Bestbrook, where the Linen Memorial will reside this weekend. It's a work of physical art. It's there, it's tangible, it's there. But it has an aura to it, a patina perhaps to it. It is something that is capable of affecting you spiritually. You've done this, you've been in close proximity with these names around the world. How does it affect you from a spiritual point of view as a human being, dealing with this list of death?
It's obviously tragic. It's sometimes hard to take, but no, I don't think it's anywhere near as hard to take as what I've seen from and heard from the survivors here. In the back of this book is a very, very difficult picture, and I didn't want to show anything graphic. I'm not a photojournalist. I'm not a photodocumentarian. It was my way of helping slow down time. I think it slows down time. I think people have to find their person in the pattern of names. And what was unusual in the Dominican, as you know, I was coming in because you helped orchestrate it. You were the main instigator, and I came over. Yeah, thank you. And but I was late with the jet airline schedule and all the rest of it. And what was interesting to me was, even though the chronology was out at the Dominican, and it made it more of a puzzle piece for survivors. It worked. I mean,
that was interesting.
People were touched and moved, and in St. Mary's, we encouraged people to pin just a small token on their loved one's name. And we did that in Corrymeela.
And significantly, in St. Mary's, it was there for Remembrance Sunday, and Kingsley tied it into his sermon magnificently. And he prayed that there would never be killing again, never be war again, that sort of thing.
A very difficult thing to do, because how do you commemorate sectarian violence, the hope of civil rights within Remembrance Sunday, where it was much, not a difficult war, not, a war with terrorism. So that was brave of him to do. I appreciated it. So spiritually, I'm a child of my era. I've investigated everything from Buddhism to, when I was an earth artist, Celtic spirituality, bringing me back to Ireland. You just work with it. It's humbling, and And you wonder about the other side, you know, what happens to us next. And in different religions, there's different beliefs about that. But even just from a point of view of living this life, you know, the community of the dead, your loved one, you know, they're with us, and they're with us at times like Christmas and Boxing Day and New Year's, and they're with us, and people remember their loved one in different ways. You know, someone might keep a whole bedroom intact for years, and another person might run to Melbourne to start a new life. But we remember them in different ways. They're with us, and they're with the community of Ireland and Northern Ireland in all these little places. And so and a funeral is a celebration of life, and it's a wonderful thing to incorporate this in a Christmas celebration. It's unusual for me. I was glad. I wasn't sure. You know, it's Christmas time. It's cold. The people want to see this in the cold.
Suddenly,
4 o'clock it's dark, right?
And suddenly it's hand in hand with carols and the music of Christmas.
Let's see what happens.
And almost the people will be processing to it from the Catholic Church.
Yeah, from all the churches.
From all the churches.
And
Well, it'll be tea and coffee.
Yeah,
things like that,
and it's a
you know.
celebration, and I think as well, obviously, as I said earlier, a reflection. And I think, you know, for somebody who's grown up through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and some of my children now wouldn't believe some of the stories that you tell them about what was life like in the early 70s when you went to university in Belfast, etc. And I suppose really what I would like to see coming out of it is all generations have a look at it, and then maybe kids even basically saying to themselves they have to make sure that this never happens again. And so you might still get the interfaces in Belfast where people are throwing stones and things like this, and young people get wrapped up in the whole excitement of that. But I think we have to ensure, and our politicians have to ensure, that we never go through such a dark phase again.
Well, Lycia and Richard, it's you know, it's just coincidental, but at this moment, our politicians at Stormont are hammering out the final details of an arrangement that takes us forward as a community, and that's happening as we speak. The British Prime Minister is there, the Irish Prime Minister is there, all our political parties are there. So what you're hoping will occur through the wisdom and the enthusiasm of our children and our young people. Our senior politicians are at the other end of the spectrum, of course, from an age point of view, but they're doing it. They're talking, and that's what the future holds. Thank you both for coming in. Will we remind, please, the people of when and where for the Linen Memorial in Bessbrook?
Okay, well, our carol service starts at 3 o'clock in St. Peter and St. Paul's Catholic Church in Bessbrook.
3 o'clock.
Then they will go and have tea and sandwiches at 4:30 up to the Linen Memorial. It's only a 100-metre walk, and they can enjoy a bit of talk and atmosphere, and they can look at the Linen Memorial. And it will be available on Monday as well for anybody who wants to come and see it. And hopefully, maybe, if there's a demand for it, we may bring it back to Bessbrook at some stage in the future.
Thank you both very much indeed. Lycia Trouton, thank you. Richard Black, thank you very much indeed. We wish that the spirit of Bessbrook shall germinate further and reach out across the world that is our island called Ireland and our province called Northern Ireland. So we're all working together hand in glove and in good harmony as we go forward.